Hey YouTube, what's up? This is Ben from ShutterGetit.com, also known as a car photographer. Welcome to episode 23 of Shooting Cars, part of Photo Tip Thursdays, the show that comes out every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This show has been going on for 23 weeks now. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is actually the second to last episode of the series as it comes out every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But don't worry, there's still reason to subscribe because I will be uploading more car tutorial videos periodically, and of course I'm still going to be uploading car and camera and computer review videos on this channel. In this episode, we are going to be talking about how to shoot multiple cars or a car and a motorcycle in the same shot. So let's get into a couple of example images and what we're going to be talking about. So in this episode, we're going to be going over how to place the cars, how to turn your polarizer, what you should be looking for in terms of composition, and how to adjust the cars and position your drivers. So let's head over to the next shot and we're going to talk about some composition tips. So as you can see here, I shot these two Jeeps. This is a while back now. This is back when I had a broken 28-75 Tamron lens, which is pretty old school. But anyways, you can see for this shot, I wanted it to be pretty even on both sides, with the left side here and the right side. So you can see from the right tire on the red Jeep and the left tire on the white Jeep, the rear tire there, it's about even. So I used kind of a centered placement for these two cars here. And I also shot from a little bit of a lower angle to make the Jeeps seem bigger than they actually are. And as you can see, the drivers position them very well, stacking one of the wheels of the Jeep on the other. And so this kind of gave it a little bit more character. And as you can see, you know, talking about episode 4 where we talk about locations, we took the Jeeps out to a natural looking habitat. This isn't shot in a parking lot. This isn't on the roof of some mall parking garage. This is in a good spot for Jeeps. And so that's something you want to keep in mind. You want to really portray the environment with the vehicles and make sure it looks good. Now here's a kind of behind the scenes shot I took of this scene. So you can see for the 3 vehicle shot, we split up the 2 Jeeps and we have this big diesel truck in the back. And you can see from this angle, it looks pretty bad, honestly. And you can see the Jeep was turning around. This is just a behind the scenes shot, but you can see that it's not just about moving the cars, it's about moving yourself as well. So as you'll see in this next image, I moved myself to the left a little bit, and then I had the Jeep pointing towards the truck, but I didn't have it cutting into it. So you want to make sure that you're not cutting the vehicles unless you're cutting evenly with the 2. And you'll see what I mean a little bit later on. But pretty much I want to have a gap here between these 2 cars, and I want to have a gap here. And ideally I should have backed this Jeep up a little bit and then zoomed outside space. But point being, you should be moving yourself as well as the vehicles to get the right shot. Now here is a light painting shot, and I have a tutorial on light painting on my channel, but what I'm going to say here is that sometimes you'll need to combine images for even light. And so we've talked about combining images in previous episodes, you know, like doing the interior shots. Same thing goes here, you just need to do a layer mask, but sometimes you won't have enough of a slow shutter speed. So this was probably a 30-second shutter speed. You won't have enough to light paint 2 cars in one go. And so what I did in this case was I light painted for 30 seconds, did the G35 on the left, and then I did another exposure and I did that GTI on the right, and then in Photoshop I blended the layers together. And so keep that in mind when you're shooting multiple vehicles. It may take more than one shot depending on what the lighting looks like, and also for polarizing, because you do want to do the double polarization method because you'll probably have multiple angles shown of both cars, as you'll see in this next image. So here you can see we have the front of the cars and we have the side. And so I was actually shooting handheld for this shoot, so that's a little sacrilegious of me, but this was just during a quick drive with some of my friends out to Highway 1. And point being, you want to shoot with a tripod so you can do the double polarizer method, and even more so when you're doing group shots so you can keep the same photo and only have the cars adjust. So in this case, you can see the gap between the Miata on the right and that BMW 335 is a little bit larger than the other cars. And ideally, I would have liked the Mitsubishi and the Mini Cooper to be split up a little bit more so you could see the wheels on the Mini, even though they were stock at this point. The thing is, all the cars, you can see the wheels on it except for the Mini, so you want to show the same amount of each car. And you can see from the front shot that this worked out pretty well. Again, the Miata should have moved a little bit further to the right. I should have done the double polarizer to get rid of the reflection on the Nissan Altima on the left, because you can see that orange blob from the Mini Cooper. And the other point here is that you want all the cars on a very similar focal plane. What I mean by that is you want the front of each car to be almost lined up. Like if I just drew a wall right there, they should all be touching. And that way when you set, the emblem on the Mitsubishi Evo or the Lancer there to be in focus, all of the front bumpers of the other cars will be in focus as well. Because if you have one of the cars more forward than the others and you're shooting with a shallow depth of field, let's say you're shooting at f2.8 or maybe even f4, you might have the other cars look blurry in the shot. And so you want to make sure that they're all kind of on a similar plane. Now, speaking of setting up the shot and shooting on a tripod, you want to envision the shot before you start positioning, especially for multiple car shots, right? And so in this case, what I mean is when you put in the first car and then you put in the second car, and if you have a third car and you put it in, it's really hard to adjust at that point, right? And so what you want to do is you want to let everyone in that group know exactly how you're going to be lining up the cars. So, draw it out on a piece of paper or a napkin or a receipt or whatever, or just show them an example photo that you've seen online, or just, explain with your hands and just point where you want the cars and how you want them facing. And that way you can get all the cars lined up correctly. And another thing with this, of course, is you should be spotting your drivers at all times. So as you guys can see, these Subarus are pretty close together in the back. The WRX on the left and the one on the right are very close together. And so you want to spot your drivers, and you want everyone's windows when they're moving their cars should be open so they can hear you. You should be in their rear view mirror, so you want to make sure that they can see you, and make sure you guys agree on the hand signals. So if you're pointing to the left, you got to know if the driver is going to turn their wheels to the left, or if you're trying to have them move the back of the car to the left. And so communication is key, just like with everything in life here, and you want to make sure your drivers know which way you are directing them before you guys actually start moving the cars. So make sure you do that, and again, make sure you shoot with a tripod so that you can do a double polarizer method for the shots. Here's a photo I took recently. You guys probably saw a photo of this Repsol bike during sunrise in San Francisco that I took on my Instagram at a car photographer. And for this shot, what I wanted to do was actually show both of the vehicles. So these are both owned by one guy, which is awesome. Two really high revving fun machines. And I wanted to show kind of the aggressiveness of both machines and not as wide of a shot. Now you can see here this is pretty even. Again, I have a good amount of space on the left and an equal amount on the right almost. But what I did here was I actually cut through the middle of the M3 with the bike, and you can see that it's kind of this aggressive sporty rear of the bike with the aggressive front of the M3. And so keep in mind that you can do this with a lot of shots with multiple cars. So you could have like the tail lights of one car towards the left side, and then blurred out you could have the headlights of another car on the right side, so you could do that. Or you can cut as long as it looks even. You guys will kind of place cars and see what looks good and what doesn't. It especially depends on the lines and the height of the car, right? If I shot this from a lower angle and I made the windshield of the motorcycle higher than the windshield of the car by shooting from down low, that wouldn't have made any sense. And so composition is really key here when you cut through cars. But you can see like this shot with the Bugatti cutting through the middle of the Aventador, it works because it doesn't just cut randomly in the middle of that air inlet on the front right of the Aventador. It cuts right in the middle, and so it's not really cutting anything off too harshly. It's more of a soft cut down the middle, so it works in that shot. And now another trick that I want to show you is blurring out the vehicle in the rear. So as you can see in this shot, this is the Honda Ridgeline. This is actually a handheld shot at 1/15 of a second, f2.8 I think, or f3.2, something like that. And what I did was I shot at a very slow shutter speed, and then I had the car drive by in the back and it blurred out. And so you can do this with as many cars as you want in the background, depending on how slow your shutter is and how closed down your aperture is. But I would recommend doing this with a shot of multiple generations of cars, which would be really cool. I'm hoping to do that at some point soon, but it'd be cool to have like maybe the new F80 M3 and then have the older M3 blurred out in the background, right? Kind of like a distant memory. It's a cool little effect that you can do, and this is really easy to practice because all you have to do is park your car, put your camera on a tripod, shoot with a slow shutter, and wait for some random person to drive by. And so you don't need to do this with a friend to practice it, but of course for your shot you're going to want another similar vehicle, which would be ideal. So I'm pretty sure that was BMW X3 that we had driving by, and it blurred out, so you can't really tell what it is, but it doesn't matter because the focus of the shot is the 2017 Honda Ridgeline. And now another tip, this is going to be the last one before we go, and that is show similar amounts of both cars. And so in this shot, you can see I had quite a gap between the G35 and the SVT Cobra on the right. And on the G35, you just see the rear. You don't see the face of the rims at all, whereas on the Cobra, you do. And so to fix that, we can either move the Cobra in, and I can move myself physically a bit to the right, so it's just the back of both cars, or I could just move myself to the right and have a similar angle and a similar amount of both cars showing. So you can see, now you can see the rear and the exhaust of both cars. You can see the rims on the right side of both cars. You can see the roof line and the reflection, and the mirrors. So everything works out evenly here, right? So you don't see the driver's side mirror on either car, so you don't see it on the Cobra, you don't see it on the G35, and that works out well. So that's something to keep in mind. You want to shoot the same amount of both cars and play around with it. This is very much personal preference. It depends a lot on the location, how much space you have, what you have going on in the background, what details you want to get. So a cool shot that you could do is actually line up the wheels of both cars and just do more of a close-up detail shot, and that way you could see the rims of both vehicles, which is nice. And so these were just a couple of tips that I've written down for myself over the years. And at the beginning, it is kind of hard to get cool looking group shots because it looks more like a snapshot like this, where you had a snapshot of two cars. But when you really put some prep into it and plan out your shot and move both yourself and the vehicles, that's when you can get really cool looking photos. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, hit me up on Instagram at @acarphotographer. I want to announce that this is actually going to be the second to last episode of Shooting Cars weekly, coming out at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Thursdays. I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling soon. I'm going to be moving down to school as well in September. So the series is kind of done for now, but make sure to subscribe because I will have new videos coming out periodically as I learn new things about shooting cars that I can share with you guys. I hope you've enjoyed the series. I will see you next week at Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and thanks so much for watching. Have a great week. Peace.